with each other where all we can do is laugh and be confused at the cacophony and nonsense of life, and to deliberately say like, well, there's no words. There's no words.
There's
I'm
no
using
words
words to tell
describe it.
you there's no words. Yeah.
To describe the psychedelic experience, there's just no words.
How are we going to cut this, though? I just realized we just started talking again.
Yeah, so you guys are just going to have to follow along.
Okay. We'll start, but we'll end, I guess, by saying, okay, so like we didn't intro Shashi at all in the podcast either.
Just
So this is a mess.
Yeah, we dove in.
Yeah, but it was deep. We dove in and we drowned. We're fucked.
Yeah. So this is the intro to it because, I mean, we just went at it. We literally just started the podcast. The moment the camera turned on, we just got into it, and it was kind of beautiful because it was just he had such a powerful story, and I'm happy he was able to share it and express it honestly and openly. He overcame a 20-year heroin addiction, and maybe it's a common story. Maybe I just haven't heard one like this, but starting heroin from a young age and from more of the lens of just not knowing what he was getting into. Yeah, I mean, most addictions are probably that way, but
he nailed we shouldn't even talk. He nailed it. The way kids are just lost, and how that's just a life thing, and like we're just flustered. I said a lot that I related to what he was saying, but I'm sure a lot of people will. Maybe not the exact sentiments, but there's just this kind of, we're all fucked, and like we're all just so like unaware, and then we start gaining awareness and realizing how unaware we are, and like being a human is weird. Being a young human is like just extra. Like it's just so there's not, I don't know what to put on that, you know, but he said it perfectly. I feel like we shouldn't even try.
Yeah,
honestly, like he
went through it, so he understands it fully, and he explained it beautifully. All I can say is just hear this guy's story. He overcoming the addiction of heroin with psychedelic use and ayahuasca, and just realizations in life, all kind of combined, turned him into who he is today. And
he's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah, he's an awesome dude. Yeah,
he's so aware. Yeah. Like you're gonna love it. I mean, I was constantly blown away. He's really done work. The way he talks, just so honestly, and he's so articulate about this complicated inner world and his past. He's had to just dig, look at that mirror constantly, and it shows, man. So yeah, I guess fucking enjoy. Yeah. What are you still listening? Just press some fast forward buttons.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Subscribe.
We're going to cut this different probably, I hope. It's going to make more sense.
Yeah, this is a messy one, but we're always messy, so what the fuck not?
Yeah.
But just like, subscribe, hit the share button, send these conversations to your friends, your family, your loved ones, and spread the good word, because we're spreading it too.
Weird some people out with some ayahuasca stories.
Yeah, I mean, you got like 73 or 74 episodes to look through, so there's some fun stuff everywhere.
I told a guy recently about the podcast that and I'd never met him before. We're talking like online, and he just starts listening to them from the beginning. So he's telling me about, dude, no, it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah. Look, I listened to episode 3 recently. I think it was called Integration, and you know how he said, Sashi was saying how these moments of life pass, and like you don't remember who you were like a few months ago or a year ago.
That was deep, yeah.
Yeah,
because everyone's like, no, I totally remember all my lessons. Like I'm good now, and it's like he's just like, nah, bro, you fucking forget everything.
But what's scary about that? Well, not even scary, just interesting about our journey is we actually have snippets of the older versions of us in all these episodes.
It's odd.
It's fucking odd, because I was listening to myself from Integration episode, which was like over a year ago. I'm like, oh, that's where you were. And I was just hearing my mental process back then. And dude, it's going to get weird in 5 years from now.
I'll tell you something weird. I'm already thinking of that 5 years person. I'm looking at us now going like, this could be better. This could be different. And it's like, not again, like we talked about, like there's no need for guilt or anything, but it's just like, I can see where things are going. I know that sounds so basic, but like this is new to me. It's weird.
You see the progression where it can head, the kind of path that can be laid in front of you.
And there's so much choice involved. Yeah. So I'm just like, this is gonna get better. This is gonna get more interesting. I want to be like a better speaker. I want to be a better writer. I want to be a better. I want to fucking learn how to edit because you're doing it all the time, and I feel bad for you, especially with this one. Like just interviewing and I don't know. I've just been thinking about it lately, and it's like it's just a choice, and the path is illuminated, and that never happens in my life. Wow. That's cool. So it's really something. I'm glad I got to say that on recording, air, on air. There we go. Air. Yeah, I have a lot to learn. So we love you, guys. Stay curious, comment, do all the fun things. We appreciate it, and enjoy.
Yes. What's up, beautiful people? I'm Nathaniel Pearl.
And I'm Sam Sheva.
And welcome to Curious Chimps Podcast, a show where we explore the infinite complexities of the human experience.
We do not endorse anything illegal, so please, consult doctors, do your research, and for the love of all that is holy, be safe. All right, let's talk about drugs. Curious Chimps. It's just a big, foresty, colder part of America with less people.
Yeah. I think that's what gets me interested. Like, the States is a bit too much for me.
So you're in Bangkok?
Bangkok, Thailand, bro.
Nice. I was there 2 years ago.
Nice. Whereabouts?
I just passed through Bangkok. It wasn't really my scene, but I went to Chiang Mai, then Pai.
Beautiful.
I loved Pai. It was incredible.
Pai is amazing.
Dude, it was next level. I wanted to live there.
So did I.
Yeah.
I was there for like 2 weeks a couple of years ago.
Nice.
And I didn't want to leave. Have you ever been to the islands though?
I went to Koh Lanta.
Koh Lanta, okay.
Yeah. I didn't want to go to the big touristy ones, so kind of chilled in Krabi, and Koh Lanta was pretty much as much as the islands.
Krabi's nice. Yeah. Koh Phangan is another one. Really nice. Very cool community there. A lot of medicine people and nice parties out there. They throw the psychedelic trance parties there.
Oh, nice.
So you get a good crowd, especially when the tourists aren't there. The tourists turn it into like a booze fest because they just don't know. They have no ideas. You just come in. These young married couples with boyfriends and girlfriends from like Europe or the States and just get smashed drunk and make idiots out of themselves on the streets and stuff like that. It's good fun to watch, but it gets irritating.
It's funny the first time.
Or when they don't engage with you.
That's it,
Once they start engaging with you, you're like, okay, you stay there and I watch from here. We'll pretend you're on TV.
That's it. You just start saying something in another language, hoping they would like leave you alone, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I can get away with that with my skin color.
I was gonna ask actually, because you said you were born in Hong Kong. Like you don't look like you're from Hong Kong.
Yeah, ethnically I'm Indian. My dad moved to Hong Kong when he was 17. My mom's from Singapore, and they got married, and I was born in Hong Kong. So, and then I lived there most of my childhood life. I was about 17. I was about 18 when I moved out. Went to live in Portugal for a couple of years, and then from there. Hong Kong was always the base, so my dad always had his business back in Hong Kong, and I'd always travel back there. So I lived in Portugal for a couple of years, then back to Hong Kong, then I moved to the States. I lived in Los Angeles for about a year, and then back to Hong Kong again, and then I opened a business in Singapore, then back to Hong Kong again, and then it's been about 5 years I've been in Bangkok now.
It's a nice journey.
Yeah, man. You've seen a lot.
Yeah, it's been entertaining. I mean, throughout all the bullshit, it's been fun.
In retrospect, right? You get to see a lot of your life behind you now. Obviously, it's part of the reason why we want to talk to you today. Like, you had some crazy days, kind of thing. I'm still.
Oh, it's insane. I mean, I sit here talking to you guys and. it's funny because life takes its journey, and you can easily forget your past and what you've been through, and you know, like it's like current moment is all that's relevant, right? Because you're who you are today. You probably won't be the same tomorrow either, and you can barely remember the person who you were a year ago.
Yeah.
And then when you look back at the last 20 years, you're like, holy shit, you know, like that's been quite a journey, and it's interesting. It's evolution.
Yeah, because I don't know your story fully, and I'm actually happy to hear it for the first time here. But I know you went through a crazy process, and you battled an addiction. I believe it was with heroin, and that was for 20 years.
Well, I mean, 20 years. I first started using substances when I was like 13 or 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
It started off with cannabis and just little playthings, whatever you could get your hand on. There was a drug in Hong Kong in Asia that they call ice. Basically, it's methamphetamine.
Okay.
So I started playing around, dabbling with those things while I was in, I guess you would call high school, like grade 8 or something like that. I can't even remember now. So I started smoking cannabis, and no real idea of what anything was. Just found relief in substances, and it was fun and things like that. So it gradually led on to heroin, and very interesting because it was very, very widely available in Asia back in the day. I know the opiate pandemic took over in the States and in North America much later. But back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, it was just massive in Hong Kong, where I grew up. And a whole bunch of us from school were just dabbling in heroin with no idea of how potent and how strong this substance actually was, till much, much later into the use of it, until the addiction actually kicked in. And the thing with heroin is that it kind of takes over really, really fast. And when you're young and you have no idea what an addiction is, and how you can get, like, you have no knowledge. You're like, I don't know, I think I was like 15 or 16 the first time I tried heroin. And, you know, you snort a white line or something like that, some powder, you think, okay, this is going to be fun for a couple of hours, and that's about it. But pretty much from the get-go, it just takes control of you physically. I mean, mentally, your brain's kind of like still developing, so you don't really understand much. Even when the first time I went through withdrawals, I just thought I was sick. I didn't understand. I couldn't make the connection that this was from the substance that I was taking, because prior to that I was smoking weed, and that has no real physical dependency, apart from the munchies, or, you know, being able to sleep at night or something. But even then, it wasn't anything major. It was very interesting to see how this substance takes control of your body, and learning what addiction is from quite a young age. It was very interesting, and the impact that it has on your life, your social life as a kid, your behavior, and pretty much every aspect of your life gets taken over by the substance. It's quite crazy.
I can only imagine. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience. I have a bit of experience with addiction, but not with heroin specifically. And I'm curious because, like you said, you didn't even make the connection at first with the withdrawal symptoms. Yeah. So was there anything else that had a kind of addictive quality to it, or was it once you made that connection that you just wanted to avoid the withdrawal symptoms? Like, or was it just fun? Yeah, so was it just like a recreational good time?
Yeah, I think the thing with heroin is that it's like uppers and downers, you can kind of say, right? Like cannabis can be considered a kind of a downer, where you're just really relaxed and chilled out, I was never one for stimulants. I didn't really enjoy the methamphetamine high, being all hyper and stuff. I was always like somebody who wanted to relax and chill out and listen to music and, do a bit of art or drawing or painting and stuff like that. So, heroin was a major downer. It like puts you into like a dream state almost. I would compare it to like being in like a really slow underwater world where you're just floating around. Everything's really, really comfortable. The physical sensations are very euphoric. All your muscles and your limbs and your body is just totally relaxed and in this state. I read once in one of these strange addiction books that they compare it to like 3,000 times more 3,000 times more potent than the second that you orgasm stretched out into like 3 hours. So imagine orgasming, your whole body's orgasming for like 3 hours or something, right at the peak, at the climax. And that's what it feels like. And it made sense to me when I read that, because it was like, in that state, you don't really want to talk to anybody. You don't really want to see anybody. You don't want to, because you're just going through this amazing bliss sensation for a couple of hours that you just don't want to be bothered. Like life is so entertaining on its own.
That really piques my interest. Well, that really piques my interest because a lot of substance experiences have a kind of peak and valley to them. And so you're saying that heroin just kind of has this like plateau for a long time. Like you just kind of go up and stay up, and it's like the craziest thing. Or it's
it's pretty much it's pretty much instant. Like
that's
I guess in a way you can compare it to like a DMT flash. When you just you inhale your DMT and you're just gone. It's not like other psychedelics like LSD or mushrooms or say ayahuasca, San Pedro, where it kind of builds up slowly. With heroin is like the minute you inject it or you snort it, it's just a matter of seconds or even a couple of minutes before you hit like peak, close to peak, and then you're just there for a couple of hours, and then you can just start to feel it wear off. And then as it wears off, you want to do more.
Yeah.
Similar to cocaine in a way. I've never been one that was, it never really piqued my interest much, but whenever I did use cocaine, it was also, you're pretty much there after like a couple of minutes, and then it lasts, and then it fades off fairly fast.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, it was an interesting time in my life. I have to say that throughout it all, I look back and I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for actually being courageous enough to break down all those barriers and get totally addicted to the substance, and learn from it. Because I was quite lost as a child. I had no idea what was what. I couldn't make sense of anything. School just didn't make sense. Like I couldn't understand why I was there. Constantly trying to fit in at the same time. You're just trying to like maneuver your way around, like try to get interested in certain aspects of it, but understand at the end of the day when you go back home or when you're on your own, you're like, dude, none of this really makes any sense. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Like constantly questioning everything. So once I got introduced to substances, at first, obviously cannabis, there was a bit of relief from that, that chain of thought, where I was, I was able to enter into the state of mind where it didn't matter anymore, like why I was doing certain things or why I was pushed to learn in these institutions and learn about things that had no interest to me. It was all good. I was like, all right, I can flow through this as long as I get stoned or high after school, or so it definitely helped me for many years. And I often think to myself that had I not been using heroin, or had I not been taking drugs for a long time, I probably would have killed myself if I was sober.
Wow.
Because the trauma, the mental trauma that society kind of plays on the youth, of constantly having to compete, and you're really not looked at if you're not good at sport, or you're not good at academics, or you're not a social person, or so like all these I don't know, all these elements that life throws on us in a Western culture and Western society, they really made me claustrophobic. And I come from a fairly conservative Indian family, Asian background. So my parents weren't really open to talking about mental health issues or what was going on with me. They just obviously knew something's wrong with the kid, and he always needs to get high, right? He always needs to be out. And I suffered from like not being able to be alone as well. Like I had a fear of being on my own for too long. But once I started using substances, that wasn't much of a problem. So I was fine on my own if I was high. But the minute I wasn't high, I needed to be around people. I needed to be doing something, whether it was going out for drinks or something social. I never felt comfortable in my own skin. Always needed like some kind of validity from, people that I was good enough to be around, fun enough to engage with, and low self-esteem, I think, like growing up, because I wasn't good at school, wasn't really good at anything much that I picked up. So, I was always questioning myself, and I'd always compare myself to other people. Like, hey, these guys can get, do this or do that or whatever. They seem to be really cool at it or good at it, and where's my place in life? Kind of, like always questioning. So when I started getting high, I was like, dude, this is it. I roll perfect joints. That's it. That's my place in life. Yeah. Like, I know where to get the best quality heroin in the whole of Hong Kong. That's it. I'm that guy, right? So, and it all makes perfect sense when you're intoxicated. You're like, yeah, that's the reason I'm alive, and you kind of go with it as long as you can.
So this stuck with you for 20 years. As you were aging through it and realizing what it was becoming, was there a tipping point? Well, there must have been a point where it was just you assessed it, or something may have happened. I don't know, that it's just like, you know what, I got to cut this habit. And then, like, how did that come across? Or how did that happen?
The thing with heroin addiction is that you can't stay on the drug for too long, because it gets expensive. It takes a toll on your health. It takes a toll on your relationships. So the process with most heroin addicts is that they'll be addicted to the drug for, say, X amount of time, a couple of months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. They'll be using constantly every day, every few hours, and then they'll take a break, right? And you try and quit. You go to rehab, you go through withdrawal symptoms, you do what you have to do to stop, but you're back on it soon after. And when you go back to it, it's worse. The relapse is always, it takes you a quarter of the amount of time to get back to where you were, or worse. So it was an ongoing cycle. I think, if I recall clearly, the first time when I realized I was addicted to the substance, I was probably using every day for a good 7 months, 3 to 4 grams of heroin a day, which is quite a lot. Yeah. In terms of the only way I can quantify it is probably in monetary ways, which is close to about 200 to 250 US dollars a day of heroin is what I was using.
Wow.
And that continued for about 7 or 8 months. So if you think about it on a financial scale for a young kid, it's a lot of money. Yeah, like 17, 18 years old. So you obviously have to do things that you're not supposed to be doing at that age. I would sell drugs. Obviously, it was the easiest way to fund your habit. So it kind of carries on like that, and then you quit for a couple of months, and then you go back to it, and you slip up, and then so the cycle is very damaging at the same time, because every time you stop, you're like, okay, this is it. I'm clean. I'm good. I'm gonna start over again. I'm gonna get a new job. I'm gonna start hanging out with new people. I'm gonna, turn my life around, and then it just takes like a couple of seconds on a bad day, and you're back at it, and this spiral just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And I went to rehab. I don't know. I've lost count how many times I went to rehab. I stated the longest stint I had in rehab was I think 18 or 19 months.
Wow.
And it was where I felt safest. I didn't want to leave, because I didn't trust myself that if I left here, I would be able to stay clean. And that's also part of what rehab does to you. It makes you feel safe. It makes you feel secure. You're surrounded by people with the same issues. So you don't have this feeling of like how society looks down on addicts and stuff like that. Everyone's an addict in rehab. So it's all good. You're comfortable there. It's like you have your own little community. And, so I stayed my first stint in rehab. I stayed there for like 18 or 19 months, something crazy like that. And it only took me like 3 months or something after to relapse. So that was really eye-opening to see the power of the drug and how it takes a hold of you. Because obviously after 18 or 19 months staying clean, you have this sense of confidence, that, I've been clean for so long. I can do this. It doesn't matter if I'm in a rehab or not. I just got to maintain my lifestyle, live the same or the similar way that I was living in rehab, but in society. And yeah, it wouldn't last very long. I had a lot of cross addictions. So in order to stay off heroin, I would drink alcohol, for example, or I'd find a hobby like gambling, like sports gambling or something like that, like just cross addictions that would help me kill my time and stay off the junk, right? But eventually everything kind of led back down that road. They were all just like stoppers in a way that just kind of slowed the process down. I knew at points that that's exactly what I was doing. I was going to eventually end up back on the heroin, but I wanted to slow the process. I didn't want to get there immediately. So I'd kind of fool myself that, drinking's not as bad as doing smack or so on and so forth, or like gambling all night till 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. every morning that's better than getting high on heroin. So, in many instances, it was probably worse. I was probably better off with the bag than I was wasting thousands of dollars every night. But that's how scary the addiction was for me, because I knew once I was back on that road, it was, everything would fall apart again.
Yeah, and like a yo-yo.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time.
Yeah, that sounds like fucking hell, to be honest, for sure.
Beyond, yeah.
I'm wondering, because you at the beginning you were talking about like your childhood and how it kind of led you into these experiences. Obviously, there's this addictive aspect that's like just governing that kind of 20-year stint, like you said, and this yo-yo effect. But is there like a kind of common thread in like your life, or like in the way you saw life at the time? Is there something that kind of made this like a or something like those lesser of evils as well, you know, like you were always looking for some kind of replacement or some kind of escape?
Yeah, well, the common thread that I find in not just myself but other addicts that I met during my course of life in rehab and places that I went was that there is definitely some trauma inside, and where it is, it's so hard to find.
Yeah.
You know, like there's some issue that's eating the person up inside of them, and it's almost plain to see when you're in that. I mean, when you meet somebody and you know they have issue, you know they have issue. You know, you can just tell it by the way they look at you. You can tell it by the way they talk. You can realize that there's something there that's deep rooted in this person, and that's why they behave a certain way, and that's why they do certain things that they do. And for me, I never felt normal. You know, I never felt like I fit in. I never felt like that was my place. Like, this is who I am. You know, I felt like I didn't have a personality. Like, I would sway from things just to kind of fit in with people, or like pick up hobbies just so that I had a group of friends to hang out with. Like, but I didn't really care about the hobby. It was more about the social interaction of feeling worthy or wanted by people. So that was my common thread, but it was obviously rooted from something prior to that happened maybe when I was a child. I mean, I can't seem to figure it out either. My recent use of psychedelics has opened the door a little bit to make me understand that this is something that's from way back, you know, and it happened because of something that happened way back, and it's gone now. Yeah, it's been kind of like erased or cleaned or washed over or something like that. But the memory remains. The memory of the feeling remains. Yeah, so it's kind of like inbuilt in your DNA. Memory's there, right? So you're gonna know that I did feel that way once upon a time. So it's a common thread. It's the only common thread that I find with addicts, that there's something stuck inside of them that they just don't know how to release. And for me, psychedelics were that big vacuum that kind of just sucked it out. And until today, when I sit with medicine, I do ask the question that what was it? You know, what was it that caused me to feel that way? And it's just like, it's not important. You know, the medicine just doesn't want to tell me. It's just like, it's not important. You know, like whatever it was, it's gone now. So why are you bothered? And I'm like, okay, but I'm just curious. And they're like, it's okay. You know, it's all right. It's just something that happened. And, you know, maybe it was something so dumb and stupid that the medicine doesn't want to tell me, that it was like, you know, you dropped your milk when you were a kid and it just scared the fuck out of you, and you just, you know, people shouted at you and you got scared and you just didn't feel good enough as a child, and you know, and you grew up feeling that way, that feeling stuck. And I was like, it could be something as small as that impacts you for the rest of your life, and not having the coping mechanisms
to even know that it hit you that way. Like,
yeah, I mean, we live in a society where we throw things on children, infants, you know, toddlers, that they can't comprehend. They don't have the mechanisms in their brain. They don't have the channels, the bridgeways to connect this and that. So we throw things on them, I mean, that probably are going to damage them at some point. Yeah. And maybe that's what happened. I mean, I'm open to it. It's probably something that I'll never have an answer for. But I'm okay with that. Yeah. As long as I know that it's gone.
Yeah. I guess there's a quality, there's something, even if you're not sure what the instance is, like I resonate with a lot of what you're saying. I don't you were smart to say like maybe it's not exactly the same for every addict, but it's some kind of trauma that kind of sets you into this place where you feel out of place. I use the word moop often actually as a joke because I think it's in Burning Man or something. They use that word to describe garbage, and it stands for matter out of place. Yeah. So
okay. I never heard that word before.
I love it so much. It just makes
Sounds cool.
Yeah, like when you feel like matter out of place, it's like you're dislocated like in your life, like in this spiritual way. So there could be something, we've talked about it a bunch on the podcast already. There's some little thing or some big thing in your life when you're young that just kind of clicks you in another, like it changes your trajectory. And it could be because of the kind of person you are. You're trying to figure it out. Like you said, every kid is lost and just trying to please people or trying to, you might be more or less sensitive, and then you're getting that kind of feedback from people, and you, one way or the other, if that continues in any way or you continue it in some way, like you just feel like you're like, what do I do? Is this going to be forever? And then the added guilt of some kind of addiction, and in this case as well, you're saying there's that yo-yo effect. It's so much harder to escape, to get that kind of velocity when it's an opiate, So it's like, fuck, man. Like I really honestly, I don't know if you do, Nate, but like I really feel the same. Like this childhood vibe that you're talking about. I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm not interested in anything. I'm pretending just so that I can have friends and not be ostracized. And then I'm just kind of, even at the beginning when you said, like you start having this distance, even between that person, in a good way, in a lot of good ways, right? But it's like this traumatic side of your life, or this painful side of your life that kind of made you who you are. In some ways, you don't want to let go of it. You want to kind of use it as fuel. You want to make sure that you don't get trapped by it again. Maybe that's why you ask the medicine as well. Like, what is it that did this? Maybe I just want to look out for it with yourself or with your own kids or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a big. You just touched on a great point there, because I have 3 kids, right? And I can see parts of my childhood in them, and as a parent and as a person who's been through hell, as he called it, you don't want them to suffer. You don't want any child to suffer, right? And go through what I've been through. I always say I don't wish this on my worst enemy if I had one. You meet some real dicks, some real assholes in life, and you're like, dude, nah, I don't wish that on that guy. Like I hope he falls over on the street and bangs his head, but I don't wish he gets addicted to heroin, because that's a nightmare. Like I have so much compassion for people struggling with addiction and their families too, because I saw my parents, my family go through hell with me. Like no matter how busy I am, or no matter how occupied I am in my life with my business or my family, if there's someone who approaches me for help or any kind of guidance or, consultations over addiction, I'm always there for them. I'll drop everything. I'll be like, I'll call my wife. I'll be like, listen, I'm going to be home late, or I'm going to be on this call tonight. I've got to help this family out. She's like, who are they? And I'm like, I really don't know, but they need help, like I'm just going to sit and talk to them for a couple of hours. And even if like one sentence of like a 3-hour conversation clicks with them, it can make their life easier. And I'm willing to give my time for that. That's incredible. Because it's just one of those things that when you go through it, you don't want anybody else to suffer that kind of pain. So it's really interesting. I mean, there's I'm sure you guys are familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate.
Yes.
I think he's Canadian as well.
Yeah, I believe so.
I didn't know.
And sorry?
Oh no, I didn't know he was Canadian. So.
Yeah, I think he's Canadian. I remember watching some documentary in Canada.
One of the two. Yeah.
So I think it was him who said that all illnesses, all addictions, all physical negative physical aspects of our life stem from trauma in our childhood. And when I was listening to that podcast or documentary, I was like, that makes perfect sense, because we can't explain half of the stuff that we go through or that we feel on a daily basis. So it's obviously really deep rooted. All our sentiments come from what we learned as children. And that's where all the positives and negatives lie. So if we want to take if we want to look at athletes, for example, that are, that have really made it in their life, they're number one in their sport or in their whatever they're doing, and you have a look at their childhood, and you can find the kind of path to their success from like a really young age. Whether it's I'm really into soccer, football, and if we look at like some of the world stars of today, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, they're the two that really stand out. And you kind of go back into their childhood and you see what kind of lifestyles they lived, what kind of habits they had. You can kind of trace their success way back, and that's probably for most people who've been what you call icons in their industry, whether it was Michael Jackson. I mean, he started singing when he was like 4 or something, and they just turn into these icons. Obviously, society, culture, media play a big role in turning them into superstars for financial reasons, but you can see their talent, their raw talent coming from a very young age. And then after a certain point, it's developed and kind of curated into this kind of like ball that's put up on a pedestal. You just kind of think, okay, wow, we can't achieve that. That person's special or something like that. But it all comes from something that, and Western culture and science is kind of trying to, I feel, implement a lot of these positives into their curriculums in schools to try to make people like perfect, have like the perfect kids, have the perfect, icons for each industry. But it's something that's even deeper rooted. So you can't really teach something like that. I feel it's just, it's there from childhood and then it's just developed and grown upon.
I don't know, that's a tough one,
Yeah, I always felt that like growing older is really just undoing old programming and bad programming and feedback loops. Like that's the process. It's not really adding anything.
Letting the kid out, sort of.
Yeah, it's just like untangling all those knots.
Maybe there's a negative loop to what he's talking about as well, though. I feel like you bring up Michael Jackson, and a lot of people said he had a kind of Peter Pan let's say like a disorder almost, like a kind of quality to him, and he was stuck at a certain age. And like a lot of us having some kind of trauma, like one way or the other, again, it's how it's interpreted. Someone could give you praise and give you like all this reward for like having a kind of superpower, just being good at something better than the other kids, whatever it might be. And then how it's interpreted, how it's perpetuated,
Yeah.
You just go on.
It's also to your point that's when you have a celebrity in that kind of spotlight, we don't actually know what their mental state is, and that could be that whole career. I'm not saying it happened for Michael Jackson, but it's definitely a story for many celebrities where they get to the spotlight, but it was really based out of a trauma, and they're being rewarded by the public in the spectacle, but it was born of a trauma, and its continuation is a trauma, and there's this lack of fulfillment. And then you'll see celebrities who appear to have it all end up taking their lives or taking crazy substances and going through addiction. And it's because these layers we need to unpeel, but as a society we reward that icon like you're talking about.
Yeah, you never like.
They're poor guys. They're like, they have it all. Everyone's looking up to them, and they're stuck.
Yeah.
They're like, dude, we just want to get rid of this. We just, we want to untangle this stuff.
Yeah.
It's still like a kid, like you were saying, that just is going with momentum and doesn't really know what's going on. And even though they're rich and famous, they're in this state of like, I guess I just got to do this next thing and this next thing. And then that lack of awareness turns into a lack of fulfillment, like you said. That's freaky.
It's terrifying.
That makes a lot of sense, though.
Well, but bro, that's what society is today. I mean, we walk into Wall Street, for example, and then you have these call them douchebags or whatever, like dressed in their really expensive suits and like when I walk into that atmosphere and that environment, I kind of feel a lot of compassion for them because they're just stuck in this world, and you can see that there's stuff that they want to untangle, they want to get out, but they just don't know how, because Western culture and society has kind of told them that, listen, this is it. You know, this is where you need to be. You're making your money. You got your house in the hills. You got this. You got a fancy car. You got these amazing clothes. Your kids go to the best schools, and you just kind of like, and you feel so lost for them. You know, you're just like, you know, isn't every day the same, dude? Like, don't you get it? Like, there's no reward in this whatsoever. Yeah. It's all on the surface. It's all material. It's all, you know, like society's got us craving for stability. We want to have structure. We want to have stability. They kind of force this on you as a kid, you know, that you got to get, you know, we've all heard it all before, the best job, you got to get this, you got to get that. And when you get that, you've made it. Yeah. So I went on that trip too. You know, I bought that ad as well. So when I got clean, for a certain period of my life, I started a business and I started making money. And then I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a family. And this is the, you know, the picket fence kind of shit. And I was like, yeah, you know, let's do this. And I was like, this is going to keep me good. This is going to keep me clean. This is going to, man, it just added to my frustrations, you know, because I was like, not only do I have to look after myself now, I got to look after all this stuff that I bought. I got to look after all these people that I've made, you know, like the idea of making people, like that's what we are, you know, that's what we end up doing at some point. Well, some of us, not all of us, but you're just like, dude, shit, I'm screwed. I just added to all my problems because if I was on my own, maybe I would have been able to sort this out faster or easier or whatever. But now I have all these other responsibilities that are making me even more frustrated about who I am, you know, because now not only do I have to pretend to people on the external, people who I work with or people who I socialize with, but I also have to pretend to my wife and I have to pretend to my kids that I'm okay. You know, I got this, right? Yeah. And inside me, when I go to bed at night, I'm frustrated. I'm like, dude, I'm lost. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know, like I'm just kind of going with the flow. And you're always looking at the next guy thinking, okay, if I do what he's doing, I'll get the same result, right? Yeah. So you're looking in your society or your community and there's this guy with a similar lifestyle and he's doing these things and you're like, okay, cool. We're going to go play golf tomorrow. You're like, golf? Like, I don't like golf. And he's like, yeah, we're going tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. I'm like, cool.
He's like, yes,
I'll see you there. And you just do these things to try to find some kind of balance and stability. It just doesn't work because everyone's an individual. Everyone's on their own path. Everyone's got their own trauma that they're trying to fight through. And if you're trying to get your medicine, let's call it medicine, or you're trying to get your path to untangling your traumas through the next guy or through the ad on TV or through the, you know, it's just going to get you more lost, right?
Exactly.
It's a trap. Yeah.
I look at traumas. Well, I look at everything like psychological as like little seeds, and some seeds have grown, some seeds are just growing, and then there's giant branches with stems that are massive with leaves everywhere. And the real trauma seeds that happen when you're a child, those plants are full grown, they're everywhere. And I always envision it now, ever since like my psychedelic experience and Vipassana experiences, if you view the tree from above, it's chaos. It's just like bushes everywhere, leaves everywhere, branches everywhere. There's no start and finish. It's just everywhere. But if you kind of switch your perspective and go to the root, you can see which tree is which and which needs to kind of be plucked out. And that's just a little bit of like a imagery, but it's really about going to the depths of those traumas and finding the root cause of those things. And that's the stem. And if you can remove the stem and the roots, it's never going to grow back. At least the trauma will be there. That spot will always be there in the dirt, but those patterns are gone. And for me personally, it's been through meditation practices, and psychedelic therapy has been crucial for figuring that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, psychedelics just untangled everything in like 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Like literally, it was. I mean, obviously, I'd come to a point in my life where I was suicidal. I'd given up, okay. And I was in Thailand, and I was going through, I don't know, maybe $300-400 of heroin a day. I'd been, same old story with the most addicts, been kicked out from my house, my wife and kids. My parents didn't want to have nothing to do with me. I was pretty much homeless, moving from hotel room to sleeping in the streets to, wherever I could find a bed. And I was like, all right, I give up. I'm done. Yeah. I don't want this life no more because it sucks. And I can't keep up. Everyone's moving at this amazing pace and people got things going for their lives. And, my wife had the kids to look after. And I was like, dude, I can't be this burden on people. So I check out. And I attempted suicide once, by overdose, obviously, because that made sense. So I wasn't going to jump off a building or anything. I was just, I was just too scared of stuff like that. But so I decided to buy a couple of grams of heroin, inject it, and check out that way. And obviously the dosage that I knew the dosage required. And when I came to it, I injected. I think it was something like 1.5 grams in one shot, more than enough to take me out. And when I closed my eyes, all I could see was my son. And he was talking to me in this vision. He's saying, "How can you do this to me? Dad, how can you do this to me? How can you just leave me here?" And that just, it kind of like opened my eye. I was like, hold on, I can't do this. And an hour later, I tried shooting more heroin. Again, I was like, dude, I want to check out. I don't want this. It's too difficult. It's too hard. I can't do this. And again, the same thing happened. And I realized, look, there's something left. And I think it wasn't much after that I didn't have an idea. I knew what psychedelics were, but I didn't really have much of an idea of what they do. I dabbled in LSD and MDMA a couple of times, and I did know that there was something very different about them, but I couldn't pinpoint it. And then I watched Graham Hancock band TED Talk on YouTube, and he talks about ayahuasca and how it has the power to reverse addiction. And I was like, dude, this is it. Get high to stop getting high. It made perfect sense. I was like, how can you stop doing something by not doing anything, right? By just going to rehab or just going to,
just trying to hit the brakes.
And just, it doesn't, I was like, this makes perfect sense. You got to take something, there's got to be like a magic potion out there, right? That you got to take, and that kind of reverses the effect. And it just made perfect sense to me. I was like, dude, I'm going to do this. And you know what? This experience sounds insane. Because then I started watching all kind of YouTube videos and trip reports of people. And their visions and stuff. And I was like, dude, this is mad. I gotta do this. and so I started researching where I could find ayahuasca, and I first actually came across ibogaine, and that was actually, it's said to be even better than ayahuasca for heroin addicts, because ibogaine, it resets your receptors in your brain, the addiction receptors, and so on and so forth. So I managed to find a facilitator in Thailand, and I set up an appointment to do ibogaine with him, and that was freaky. That was a freaky ass experience. It lasted like 36 hours or something like that, and I was it was insane. But right after the ibogaine experience, I checked myself into a rehab, because I realized I needed time away from everything. I couldn't make sense of anything. I think I went a bit crazy after that ibogaine experience, because I was pretty much in active addiction. I'd use just a few hours before taking the ibogaine.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, there's all this information downloaded into me, and I couldn't grasp more than half of it. Yeah. And I just knew that I needed to be in a safe place for a while. So I checked myself into rehab for about 20 odd days. And when I got out of rehab, that urge, that craving to use drugs was still there. So I went out and I used heroin a few more times, but I was on the search for ayahuasca. And about 2 weeks later, I came across a retreat in Bali, Indonesia. And I traveled to Indonesia and met up with this so-called shaman dude who served the medicine, which was really interesting. That's a story for another time. But yeah, so it was about 5 minutes or 10 minutes into the effects of ayahuasca that I felt these questions popping up in my head. And one of the questions is like, so why are you here? And I'm supposed to answer this question. Like, I'm talking to myself here, and I'm like, so why are you here? In my head, this question, I was like, I really got to stop this addiction thing, man. It's just, I'm going to die otherwise. If this ayahuasca thing doesn't work, I'm checking out tomorrow. And they're like, oh, that's done already. I'm like, what? You're like, yeah, we've taken care of that. We spotted that immediately. It's all done. It's taken care of. What else do you want to sort out with your life? And I was like, no, I'm good. Does that mean I can go have a pizza and a burger now? Like, what is this? And that ceremony lasted, I don't know, 11 hours or something. The medicine wouldn't leave me, because what it started doing was, after the first hour, it started giving me information about how I was going to turn my life around. It was like an instruction manual on all the things that I was doing wrong in my life and that I had been doing wrong since, I don't know, the last 15 years or something, and how I was going to change them in the most simplest way possible, and it was just amazing. But obviously it lasted for hours, but because of the depth and the intricacy of the medicine, the detail that it lets you perceive every aspect of who you are and why you should not be doing those things, and how it affects you as a person, and how it affects the people who are with you, how it affects your work, how it affects your family, your children. So it's very detailed. It was a very detailed map that it kind of drew out for me. And it was just the most, there's no words for the ayahuasca experience or the DMT experience or the psychedelic experience. It's a void in language, as Terence McKenna would say. Like it's a place where you just can't explain anything. And I think that's why Terence was amazing, because he managed to find words or make up words that kind of fit them perfectly. And I think that's what a lot of people enjoy about his his talks. But yeah, there's no words about the psychedelic experience that I had that evening, because it was just a few hours. It was like 20 years that I was battling this thing, and it was like 10 minutes before, and I could feel it being vacuumed and sucked out, because all of a sudden I felt like, hey, I really don't have to worry about this anymore.
Wow.
You know?
Interesting.
Yeah, it was strange. It was like, until today, I kind of go back there to that place and that time, and I think, was that real, or was I just making all of that up in my own head? You know, but I was like, there was something really strong that happened then.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was, what happened, but something was just sucked out of me, and it just changed everything.
We always say a bit of column A, a bit of column B. You know, like you. It's a group effort. It's you and the brew. You know, I mean, but it's. You seem really introspective, you know, so I'm sure you understand what I'm saying when I say that, like, all of everything you went through build up to that moment, you know, like you were on
exactly
the edge. Yeah, like, I mean, I'm sure the iboga, the ibogaine triggered something, and then the rehab processing, you said you got like big downloads, and then to have this new context and to be on the edge of really just saying, I'm gonna end my life if this doesn't work, like. In a lot of really real ways, your ego is like out of the way at that point. So you're like, it's like there's a laser beam,
it's like
for
a direct
the download.
message.
Yeah, just direct. And
and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, it's like the walls are down. It's just you're pretty much at the brink of surrender, like the real surrender. Yeah. So ayahuasca has direct communication. It's.
You guys are exactly right. That's exactly what happened, because later after the experience, I came to know of a close friend that I met in rehab, and he had used ayahuasca 30 years ago to stop his addiction. And he was actually one of my mentors or counselors that stayed with me throughout my life, throughout my 20 years of addiction. I said, how come you never mentioned this to me? I mean, I could have done this when I was like 19 or 20, and I would have, you know, it's like, you weren't ready yet, you know, you wouldn't, it comes to you when you're ready, you know, like the Buddhist saying, like when the student's ready, the teacher arrives, kind of thing, you know, it's I mean, obviously it's just something that we hear, but the truth to that is immense, because that's exactly what happened with me, and it keeps happening with me. Like, only when I'm ready for certain things in my life does the universe provide it. And it's I'm going to touch on this really briefly. I spent the last 20 years working in a business, a family business, where I wasn't happy with what I was doing, but I had to do it for financial reasons, and, you know, it was part of the family company and the family business. So, and I didn't have a degree. I mean, I finished school when I was like 16 or 17. So this was the only work that I could do. And I managed to learn it fairly fast in the first couple of years, and kind of took over the company, and, you know, I was running this business, and, but I had no passion in it. I had no interest in it. It's a textile trade business, and it was just, you know, I just go through the motions because I knew how to do it. I wouldn't say I was fairly good at it, but I made money doing it. So I was like, okay, you know what, just keep doing this. And after my experience with psychedelics, there's like, you know, this whole transformation in your life is taking place. And I was just like, dude, I want to work with the medicine somehow, you know, like I want to really get involved with this work because it's amazing. And it's so good. It's so good for humanity. And, you know, I didn't go on the whole, like I'm going to be vegan and I want to change the world kind of thing, like neo hippie, new age kind of thing. I just wanted to work with medicine. I wanted to be closer to it. And, but my business demanded all my time and energy and my, you know, mental process and everything. So it kind of consumed me. So whenever I did try, whether it was trying to arrange retreats for for people or things like that. It just didn't work out. It was just like I was so consumed with what I was doing and looking after my family and mending all the relationships that I'd ruined during my addiction that I couldn't. But funny enough, when COVID happened, my business tanked. I had all this free time, and I was like, okay, what do I do? So I spent a good month and a half on my couch in my office watching Netflix. I'd never seen Game of Thrones, so I watched like 8 seasons of Game of Thrones in like a month. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, this is boring. I got to do something fun. So I started growing shrooms. I was like, okay, you know what? Let's try something fun. So I turned my little office into like a grow lab. Like, boxes of like mushrooms everywhere, way more than I could consume in this lifetime. And then one day I decided to actually take the shrooms. I was like, okay, let's do a little mini ceremony. So I was like growing these shrooms for a couple of months. I'd never taken them. So I decided to actually take them. One day when my wife and kids were out, and it was a beautiful experience. And as the experience was ending, I felt these mushroom entities speak to me, and they said, okay, it's time to get up off your couch, stop wasting your time, and let's put this together. And I was like, put what together? And they're like, you got this idea of starting a clothing brand with psychedelic art, with visionary art, like you're always searching the internet for cool Terrence McKenna t-shirts and, cool psychedelic wear and stuff that kind of suits you, that you're interested in. You can't really find anything. Create it. You have the resources. You're in the textile business, so you know all about cloth and fabric and manufacturing. You just have to put everything together. So that's how I started my brand, Psychedelic Dreams, and it just happened to be the perfect time. And I was like, sometimes I sit here, like it's been about 10 months now that we've been operating the brand, the business, and I'll have days where I'm like, I wish I did this like 5 years ago. And I'm like, but I wasn't ready for it, And everything about the brand clicked as well because I was looking for artists who I could collaborate with, and because it was COVID, a lot of the music festivals around the world were called off. So a lot of the artists who do like the decoration work, and they were free and they were sitting around looking for sources of income. So I'm like, hey guys, I got this idea. And they're like, yeah, we're down with it. Let's do it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Cause I'm like in all of these guys' artworks for like the last couple of years. And I was like, dude, the opportunity to be able to work with them and create clothing that not only I like, but other people appreciate too, at like affordable prices and things like that. I was like, dude, this is a dream come true. And, but as things progress in life, you kind of forget the value of them. So it's nice to like sit back and go back and think, oh yeah, this is what I dreamt of for a couple of years, and now it's actually happening. Yeah. While you're in the process of it, you kind of forget. You're like, dude, I got to get this done now. You got to finish this. You got to do that tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. But it's nice to sit and reflect sometimes on the whole entire journey and how far it's come.
It looks like everything just kind of fell into place. I mean, I'm guessing it was 5 dried grams in a dark room.
Yeah, I'm more of a 2.5 gram kind of guy. Okay.
But, they call it the heroic dose for a reason, so I don't blame you. But still, I mean, it's like you said, you when the student's ready, the teacher appears, or whatever the expression is. Like, it's almost like there's this like stream. The universe is always there waiting, and then you just step into the stream whenever you want, and you get what you need, wherever you're at. The water's flowing, kind of thing.
I feel like I've given up on trying to understand how it works.
Good. Teach me, bro. That's the move.
And I'm just realizing, because it like you say it's like music to my ears, because I feel it and I see it happen in my life and so many others. But it's like, it's the egoic mind maybe trying to break it apart and say, how does this work? How can I like how could I not
You
control
want a
it?
formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really
You want a formula so you can use that algorithm with everything that you do, and you turn everything into gold, right?
Yeah, it's just such a human, dumb ape mentality, but it's so funny when you can laugh at yourself about it. But the reality is just you allow it to happen and you just go with the fucking flow. And like so many people have done ayahuasca, it's such a common mantra. It's like just trust the process. Just trust the process when you're doing ayahuasca, but trust the process applies to life. And it's just whatever's happening as it comes, you just trust that there's going to be a manifestation of something later on, and you just got to get through these lessons to get there, you know?
Yeah, the real ceremony is life.
Yes.
It's not ayahuasca. The ayahuasca is like
It's like training wheels.
like yeah, it's like the beginning crash course, you know. It's like, okay, this is what life really is, what's really going on. And now you're going into the classroom, right?
Yeah.
And when you come back into it, I mean, some of the experiences are just mind-boggling. You're just like lost for a couple of days, and you can lose that information in that period. So the integration part is really important after a good or strong psychedelic session.
It's the most
and which is
part.
great to see.
Yeah.
It's really great to see a lot of these places and people popping up to help psychedelic integration.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. I didn't have much integration, but I think there's enough information available online nowadays, thanks to the internet, thanks to guys like you.
Thank you.
You know, spreading the message and doing it from like not just a fun social point of view, but like also an educational point of view, like trying to teach people and how to do these things and why it's necessary for us as a species at this moment in our lives. And I think yeah, the integration part is amazing. But yeah, you're totally right. Like this ceremony is life. You know, it's we're always going to try to want to break stuff down. I think it's just the curious chimp in us, right? It's like we just want to know, how does this work? How does that work? And yeah, trusting the process, letting things flow is the algorithm, I guess. It's the mistakes that you make on the way to getting to where you want to get to is the algorithm. You got to break everything down. And when I see people who are suffering through addiction, and they're ruining relationships and they're losing their loved ones and they've stopped relationships with their friends, a part of me says, yes, this is the way it has to be done. You have to break down that wall. You have to have the courage to turn everything into shit. Yeah. To realize. And that's the freaky part about it, because I'm not advocating addicts go out there and start fighting with their families and, like, you know, stop talking to their friends. But it's part of the process that for me has been essential, is to value what I had. Yeah. Right. Is like, once, you know, you always say you take things for granted. You don't realize what you've gotten until it's gone and stuff like that. But the truth to that is that, you know what, you got to break it and then you got to put it together again. And then once you put it together again, you're going to look after it like it's the most precious thing in the world. And that's, I think that's happened with a lot of us who've had this psychedelic experiences, that life has so much more meaning today than it did prior to that experience, because the value of it is thrown at you in your face. You know, the value of life, the value of these feelings, these emotions, these sentiments, the taste of chocolate, the feeling of sex, you know, all these things have such more deeper meaning than going out for drinks at a bar and picking up a random women and having a one night stand. You know, it's not to say that there's anything wrong with that, if that's what tickles your pickle, for sure, you know, but I think people who've had a psychedelic experience will look at it on a much more deeper perspective. They might still have that same experience. They might still do the same thing, but have a greater value. Yeah. And possibly do it with more dignity and integrity.
Or more honesty, you know, right? I think, like, it just, things just become way more honest. I notice every time I come back from ceremony, all these patterns that I operate on, when I come back from ceremony, I kind of observe myself and what I'm doing. And it's like there's like a commentary now. It's kind of funny. It's like, oh, you're doing this again.
You feel like naked or exposed or something. Yeah.
And some I'll keep because some patterns are actually like they're not negative patterns or harmful patterns, but some I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I don't need to keep doing this. You know, maybe I could just let this one go. This one's okay. And I just kind of, but it's like a third bird's eye view of yourself in a sense. And that's what, yeah.
I learned to laugh. I've learned to laugh at myself nonstop. Like I'm my biggest, I'm the biggest Jim Carrey I know in my life, you know, when I come out of ceremony, because I can sit there and laugh at all the stupid things that I'm doing, you know, and it's not something that I did. It's that I'm still doing them till today, you know, like I'm just like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Like I still haven't learned this lesson yet, have I? It's like, nope, then something big is going to happen that's going to make you realize. And you got to be ready for it because you're doing this to yourself. You know, you got to stop, but you're still doing it to yourself. And you're just like, okay, I'm going to go with the flow here, right? Trust the process, right? But yeah, it's a hell of a journey. I think once you start to work on this path, on this medicine path, life is your biggest teacher, you know, and nothing can deny that anymore. Like we have a tendency as humans to try to make things up and believe our own lies, just so that we can get through the day, so we can, you know, do all these harmful and negative things, not only to others but to ourselves. And we want to live in this comfort zone because it's just easy and convenient, and we can go through the 9 to 5 and all of that. But at some point on the medicine path, you start to see that, you know what, there's a brick wall everywhere you turn if you're going to continue these things. And it's really interesting to see. It's like I was speaking to a friend recently, and he's still battling addiction to this day. And he keeps asking me, he's like, dude, what is it like? Like, I was like, well, the only way I can really describe it is the psychedelic experience helped me to build a firewall in my brain, right? And every time these negative thoughts or these negative emotions or feelings would pop up externally, it would just rebound against this firewall and I wouldn't let them in. It's like I had a shield all of a sudden that to stop all these different energies from attacking me. And obviously it wasn't ayahuasca that did this. It was myself, you know, like the realization of life and everything. But once you build these firewalls around you, you kind of are prone to all these things happening in your life, and then you start flowing. You start going on a path where the external things that did affect you no longer affect you. So all of a sudden, it's like that trajectory that you were talking about earlier. It just takes off. It has a life of its own. It has a mind of its own. The universe, the energy that surrounds us, has different plans from what we have, you know, and we have to trust that because it's been around for a lot longer than we have.
Yeah. Once you see it, you kind of feel foolish to not. I mean, I guess you're talking about like removing resistance, and those things become conscious, and then you start going with the flow, as opposed to taking yourself so seriously and looking down at your feet and bumping into those brick walls all the time. Like you start laughing at yourself, you start looking around. And you're not going to walk into the wall now that your eyes are open, in that sense, I guess. And I guess I can relate to that. I that takes courage too. You know, it all takes courage. It's like the more you want to seek, even if it's at the bottom of a fucking needle or something, you know, like just seeking. Because you said before, like it's courageous to kind of seek that destruction. I think I understand what you mean now, and maybe in a way when we you know go into ceremony and seek a kind of destruction as well, it takes that kind of courage also. And then to just be in life and to see that destruction is happening still, and see all things as changing, and kind of start treating life as a ceremony. Like it maybe it takes less and less courage as we go because we realize it works, but maybe I'm kind of bullshitting myself there. Maybe I'm taking myself seriously again by accident. Like, it's always freaky. It's always, but it's endearing. It's like you're looking at yourself as you look at your own kid or something, and you'd be like, you know, like, you're going to fuck up.
Here you go again.
Yeah, exactly.
Here you go again with your nonsense.
Yeah.
It was funny, a couple of years ago, I'm totally clean now. I haven't touched drugs or alcohol in like 5 years.
Wow.
Since that first ayahuasca ceremony, pat on my back, yeah. But thank you to the medicine, obviously, for helping me. But there was this one occasion, I think it was about 4 years ago, where I'm quite a tattoo enthusiast, and I went to get some ink done, and it was a 2-day session. And the first day was fine, did the outline of the tattoo, and the second day when I walked into the tattoo parlor, the guy who was tattooing me said, like, this is going to hurt today. Like, yesterday was easy because we just did the outside framework, but today is going to work. Do you want something to numb the pain? And I was like, what, we got a cream or something? So he pulls out a bottle of rum and he's like, this will help. And I was like, I haven't drank in like, I think it was about a year or so. And at that point, and I was like, yeah, okay, I guess I could drink some alcohol if it's going to numb the pain. And after the first couple of shots of rum, it's like this animal took over me, and I was just like back like where I started all over again. And that was one of the most horrific nights that I had, because I had to live with all my past. Yeah, and it was hell. Yeah, like revisiting all the addictions and the thought processes and everything after like a year or something of being clean, and then the self-esteem goes down again. You're like, shit, I'll fuck this up again. I'm back on drugs again very soon because this is the process, and blah, 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 blah. And the next day when I woke up, I mean, I had this horrific night. The next day when I woke up, I was still like depressed. I was in tears. I was like, oh man, what have I done to myself? Like, that was so stupid. And then I was like, hold on, that had to happen. That had to happen. Because I couldn't go through this life not revisiting the past again and experiencing and knowing those feelings. So that had to happen to show me that, listen, that's not your life no more, bro. You don't have that, you don't have that ignorance inside of you anymore to say, oh, it's no big deal. It's all right. It's all good. You know, we'll go with the flow. No, it's got to stop. You had to go through that. And why did you pick up that drink? Not because you wanted it, because, I mean, you've been clean a year and a half. You haven't even thought about going out for a drink. The reason that you picked it up, because you didn't even want to have it, but you're like, okay, numb the pain tattoo. It wasn't to go out and have fun and, you know, go crazy. It was like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's try this. And if it's going to make it a bit easier for these next couple of hours, let's do it. And it just showed me that there's no instance in where it's okay to be done. You know, there's no leeway, say, for example, in your life as an addict or as a person who's suffered trauma, to go back to old remedies that made it worse.
Yeah. I guess like the guilt attached to the relapse is its own drug in a way that you're denying as well, which is why you don't have that kind of problem. Like that yo-yo is cut forever now, but you still, I guess, thought it was okay. There's still something left to learn in a way. Like I don't. It's weird to say, because you just seem like, so, like you said, you're clean and everything. I feel like I don't have the right to say it almost, you know. But if you'll forgive me, I feel like somewhere, somehow, like there was still something to learn. So then you dipped back into this bottle, and the only way
to learn that lesson at that point was to dive back into it. You know, there was no way that I was going to be able to stay clean and learn that lesson. There was like some residue left over that, listen, you got to go back and revisit this.
A final purge.
I I
Yeah.
hate to make this comparison because it's nothing. You even said before, like weed is like blah. But I've been smoking for 17, 18 years, almost every day. I had a month off here and there, like it was just a big part of my life. And for some reason, I haven't smoked since December. So it's just been a bunch of months now. I just haven't felt the need. I just overdid it and cut it out. And 2 days ago, I think a friend of mine had like a CBD, like an e-cig, and I just kind of I rationalized it, And the second I inhaled it, my body was like, "We hate this. Why did you we hate this? Why did you do this?" And it's a 1-for-1 parallel. I mean, it's like 100-to-1 in terms of the actual like guilt and the problems.
It's the same.
Stuff. But it's the
same mechanism.
And it was interesting because afterwards, my brain went like, "Oh no, I remember this. This is nice." Like there was something there, but the instinct, like something just hit me again, and it rang that bell that stopped ringing for a second for whatever reason. Now that bell's ringing clear again, and it's just like, you don't want this, you don't need this. It doesn't give you what you think it does. It's not your friend anymore. Whatever the rationale is, it's like I needed to physically experience that. Because the words or the lesson or whatever started slipping away, and I don't have that guilt at all anymore. So I just kind of went cool, and then the next day I have a big jar of weed at my house. I can roll a J anytime I want, and I just have no fucking interest in it. And I bet you, if I let the guilt in, I would be looking for an escape, and that'd be the perfect thing. The guilt breeds more guilt.
That's the cycle.
Yeah,
that's what
it calls
continues the
to
pattern.
itself. Yeah,
it's like guilt is its fuel. And it puts you into that state of abuse, self-sabotage. And that's what creates that pattern and strengthens that pattern.
No more.
Yeah.
It's like I spoke to a friend once, and he said, regret isn't real. Guilt and regret and these emotions, they're not real emotions. They're things that we create inside ourselves. Yeah. And it's like it's the false truth of what we want to do. It's the excuse that we use when there's nothing else left for us to kind of fuel us into that area. You're like, okay, I'm going to use guilt as the excuse to be able. So it's just one of the mechanisms that we create inside ourselves to try to get to where we want to get to.
It's almost like it's a justification for your current state.
That's exactly it. It's like we're feeling a certain way. We know we can stop it, but we're actually enjoying it because we're enjoying it because we want it to lead us there, because that's the thing that we want to do, right? Inside of you, that's what you really want to do. But because we've got so many masks on for so many years, we don't know which one we're wearing at which point in time. And we let the mask, we're looking in the mirror and we see ourselves with this mask on. We think it's us, like, okay, that's me. It's all good. I'm allowed to feel this way. I'm allowed to think this way. I'm allowed to do this now because this is me in the mirror, and this is me telling myself it's okay. So it's a funny game, and we enjoy playing it with ourselves. That's the sad part at times, because we want some kind of entertainment. I mean, we watch TV, we watch movies, we envision ourselves being in a movie at times and living this lifestyle at certain points. And you're just like, okay, you know what? I'm allowed to do this. And in all reality, it's free will, right? The universe gives us free will, so you're allowed to experience this. It's part of the beauty of being human. It's part of the beauty of being alive, that you're allowed to make these mistakes, but there's consequences. So let's make the mistakes and let's learn from them. Let's turn this shit around. Let's make it meaningful. And I think that's the beauty of what's come out of the addiction for me, is that I can look back and I can speak to this spirit of heroin, say, for example, and fold my hands and say, thank you so much for allowing me to experience all that hell, in this lifetime, right? thank you. Okay, I'm not a Harvard graduate. I'm not ever going to be, or I don't know, but I'm never going to be like one of those standout people in life where, you know, put on a pedestal for whatever reason or not. But the most important thing for me is those lessons that I learned from this drug that tore everything in my life apart and allowed me to go down the path where I found the medicine. And the medicine came in as another savior or another beautiful spirit that allowed me to learn so much more. You know, so it's like this endless cycle of learning. And I was thinking to myself a couple of years ago, and I was thinking, if 15 years ago or 10 years ago, you knew about somebody explained something to you about something like ayahuasca, you would have been like, what? That sounds insane. That's crazy. That can't be real. So I'm like, now that I've done ayahuasca, is there something else out there that's even more crazy than this? You know, like, it's like, it seems impossible.
I think that way too, though. Every time something new comes across my view, I always think, what else? What's next? Like there's some, like a new logic is given to me, a new way of thinking, and I stretch it out to the nth degree. You know, I think anytime I see someone doing something mindlessly, I go, where am I blind in my life? Like I always flip it in that sense. I can really, really relate to that. And personally, I mean, I love the question more than the answer, but I really just feel like you rang like another kind of bigger bell in me when you said that the lessons never end, and there is this kind of infinite inward. And if you do any kind of the medicines, the ceremonies in general, any kind of meditation, or for me it's yoga. For me it's just like learning to be still, whatever that means. You know, with the thoughts racing, with the blood pumping in the heart and the nervous system, and everything's going nuts, and then a part of you just sits and watches it. And then something else is behind that. Yeah. And again, as you said perfectly before, I mean, it's really beyond words. You can have someone maybe as bright as Terence McKenna try to give you a feeling of it, but in the end, he's just going to have a fancy way of saying, like, I can't.
Saying it, that's all that it is. Yeah. a funny, fancy way with words made up. And it's amazing to watch people who have that kind of intellect to do it. But at the end of the day, there's no words to it for me. When I try to explain it to people who've not had the psychedelic experience, even with my wife, sometimes she's had her psychedelic experiences, a couple of them now. But at first, when I tried to explain to her, it was like I just looked like a crazy idiot. Like,
it's hilarious because I laugh at myself trying to explain it. It's like I use examples like trying to explain color to a blind person. It's just, you can. How do you describe blue?
How do you say the taste of a fruit? Like, how do you?
It's just impossible. It's
the best way to describe it is to hand them the mushroom or something.
It's like think about like in this state, I was like, okay, imagine talking to like a person who's not here, like mentally not here, like he's got some real brain deficiency. That's what I sound like. Like I sound like that person to this person, but actually in reality, that person has his own reality. You know, he's living through what he's living through, and that's what I lived through. With the psychedelic experience. So I'm never going to be able to explain it to somebody who's never had it. I mean, for a schizophrenic person to speak to another schizophrenic person, they probably make perfect sense, you know? And I mean, nothing against schizophrenic people. I mean, I have compassion for them and all that sense. But like, it's just about relating to one another. And obviously after my wife's psychedelic experiences, she could understand where I was coming from. She's like, and you're not as crazy as I thought you were for a while. Like, I thought you were just hiding it in the closet, and you were actually really out there. I was like, it makes sense, doesn't it? And she's like, it makes perfect sense.
She gets it. Yeah, most people do.
She gets it. I mean, it's a thing with psychedelics is that if you stay away from them for long enough, you can kind of forget. So it's nice to revisit. I think that's why I try to go back to ceremony every couple of months, just to refresh. And there's always something new to learn. There's a new perspective waiting for you to try to download in a way. There's always an update available to better your life. I don't think we'd be here if we were able to achieve perfection. I think the struggle is part of the process. It's wanting to achieve something that you already have, but learning that it's already there. So, you don't have to go out there looking. This is just lessons to kind of know that it's already here and decondition.
Amen.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. Yeah. It's like real perfection's a kind of stagnation. There's nothing to be done, to be learned, to be moved around. Everything is kind of static. But in a way that's maybe not obvious at first, that does exist. That is the way things are. But we are experiencing this fluctuating, crazy, unbalanced, always finding balance, but never holding it. Like the 3D is really crazy, but there's this kind of self, this inner perfection that we can look at. It's a definition thing. It's like you said earlier. Like we're kind of creating these things, and it's like guilt and shame at the same time. We're rocking the boat, but if we don't rock the boat's perfectly stable, and we're just having this fucking ride, like this weird experience.
I always get really irritated when I'm comfortable.
That's a good instinct.
I get really annoyed when I'm comfortable. I get really frustrated when I'm comfortable. And I think I can only stay there for like a brief moment, whether it's with my work, whether it's with my kids, whether it's with my, anything in my life. When it's going well and it's good, it's boring. I'm like, we've got to do something with this. We've got to take this to the next level. We've got to get something out of this. So I find myself constantly searching out discomfort in a way, let's find something really complicated that's really ununderstandable, and let's try to put it together. And once that's done, let's go on to something bigger than that, because the more discomfort that you can actually turn around, for me, is part of the challenge. Like it's the self-test, put myself in a position where I know I don't like the food, for example. I know I don't get along with the people because of different interests, and stick myself in that position and try to, get in there and understand why it is, right? And try to change my perspective on either the way that I perceive those people, or the way that I can make myself actually enjoy the taste of that food that I dislike. Like, you throw enough discomfort at you, and a person actually gets comfortable. I mean, I think about this sometimes. I think about like people in prison, for example. I mean, imagine being like locked up in a cell for like, I don't know, 15 hours a day on your own. And I mean, the mental thought of it is like, gets me claustrophobic just thinking about it. But then these guys, they go into this uncomfortable position. They spend years there, and they actually end up liking it, some of them. And then, and we've heard cases of people who don't want to leave prison. Like they're actually happy in there. They make a life for themselves out there. So in there. And I just think about it in that state, that like, you know what? I'm constantly putting myself in a prison. Yeah. And I'm trying to find comfort in that prison. And once I've kind of achieved that comfort, I can move on to the next prison. Like these little boxes inside of my mind where I got to stick myself in and like release everything in there. And then I'm like, okay, that's done. Next thing, and move on from there.
That's so perfectly said. Like when you were first talking about looking for the next challenge and not enjoying comfort, I felt like I'm the opposite. I felt like I love being able to just like be, and you have this energy where you want to do. But now that you put it as like finding those prisons and getting from one to the other, I'm like, no, I'm doing the same thing. Yeah. That is exactly what I'm doing as well. But it just may look different on the outside. But there's these places where there's like, I don't know, dark parts of myself or parts that I might still claim with like some kind of guilt or shame or something, and I want to sit there and be forced to be with them for a long period of time until I integrate them or let them go or whatever it is, and it's fucking dope, and it's painful, and it's very much like we're talking about vipassana, like meditating, ceremony, psychedelics, you could box that into the harsher version of it with heroin addiction. It all has these kind of, or the masks with the other people, like everything has this kind of mirror vibe. This is fucking deep.
When I mean, it'll happen to you when you're in ceremony, when you just realize everything is the same. You know, it's all the same. Like I often tell this to my wife. And I often say to her that I've traded my old problems of heroin addiction for a whole set of new problems. And I know if I move on from this, I'm just going to trade it for a whole bunch of other problems. It's all the same. It's all relative. A heroin addict has problems. Okay. We call them problems, but doesn't Elon Musk have the same thing? I mean, he's got problems in his life. I mean, you know, the guy can't stop wanting to go to space. So everyone's got issues, you know, it's all the same thing. And it's like about trying to find the algorithm to kind of make it work, you know, like what you were saying earlier, like you want to have like this technique that if I do this, then I do that, and then that's going to get me out of here. But it's about the process of being there, right? And actually taking it all in, understanding everything, perceiving everything for what it really is,
I think
and going to the core of it, and then moving on to the next thing.
That's it.
So
gracefully.
For me, it's like
moving on to it gracefully and with humility, and that's when you attain those pillars. It just becomes so much fun because you're kind of putting yourself in these challenges and you kind of get caught up, but then you realize you got caught up and you laugh at yourself. And it's just like this playful training / like sabotaging, but in the best possible way to help you progress through this journey. You know, it's just like you're laughing at yourself. You're like, okay, let's put yourself into this category now. How are you going to do with that environment where you don't like these people or you don't jive with them? Let's see how you do. Jump in there. And you can kind of laugh at yourself as you interact and grow in that experience.
That seems like it is the algorithm.
Yeah.
It's got this
as a kid.
Oh, please.
Sorry.
No, I was just
as a kid. I just wanted to say this and then I'll continue. As a kid, I loved Super Mario Brothers.
Who did?
Yeah, I could spend like a whole day just playing Super Mario Brothers. And I think it was my 6th or 7th ayahuasca ceremony where I went to Ecuador, to this place called Vilcabamba. And it's in the San Pedro Valley, up in these mountains. It was just an amazing place. And we had an ayahuasca ceremony there one night. And I was still trying to figure out why I kept coming back to ayahuasca, why I came back to another ceremony after I've kind of relieved these addiction issues in my life. My life was going fairly well. And, why do I keep coming back to this medicine? Like every couple of months. And it was after the ceremony, I sat with the shaman and she's like, it's a bit like a computer game, you know, you finish one level, you kind of, you pull the flag down, but you got to go to the next level. The game's not over, It's like they fool you with this, like Western society or modern culture can kind of fool you that the game's over after you get the princess or something. It's like, no, now what do you do with the princess? There's a whole like after section that the other half of the story, like Bob Marley used to say, like, half the story has only been told, like the other half is all you, like what you're experiencing inside of you about achieving these levels. Like level 1's done, okay, let's move on to level 2. And I find the medicine is also this game where you go back into ceremony and it's like, okay, you're ready for the next level now, and like sometimes you can get stuck on a certain level for like 5 or 6 ceremonies and you're still trying to figure stuff out. And then all of a sudden you get it. You're like, yeah, okay, next level. And then you're doing a whole bunch of other things. You're learning, you're perceiving a whole different aspect of things. And you didn't even realize that it was there prior to that. You're just like, dude, I was so ignorant to that before. And that just builds the humility and the integrity, humbleness in your daily life, like in your ceremony.
Yeah. I would say even more, it's like a game of snakes and ladders. Like, you get to like these levels and then you just fall back to one and you're like, what the fuck am I back here? Yeah. And it's just, you know, at least in my situation.
You said both often. So it's fun. Like he was saying all this and I'm like, Nate said this exact shit. Like it's I've only gone once for ayahuasca. I've tried other psychedelics. So like I had just like an overwhelming experience, but I don't have this relationship yet where it's like, I understand though, just that, like, you know, like we said in life as well, you kind of gain these tools and then the next level is because you have those tools. Now you have new shit to deal with. Yeah. So it's I get it, but not with ayahuasca yet.
Ayahuasca is different than anything I've ever did because it's like it's a communication in a sort. It feels that way. And as you go back, it's like, oh, so this is where we were. Let's see where we are now. And it's like a progression. It really does feel like a school.
Crystal clear channel.
Yeah, and it's so many people describe it that way. And it's like, it's just that I've never had that with anything else, like mushrooms or whatever, where ayahuasca really feels like it's like an assessment of where I am at that moment. And it's just like, how do we progress through this and get to the next level? I'll put it in air quotes, but it feels like levels. And it's just incredible to have that kind of ally alongside you as you progress through life. You know, I feel like I can turn to ayahuasca as a checkpoint to see how I'm doing and see if I'm living true to the truth that I believe, you know, and she kind of guides me or slaps me in some senses, you know, but so far she's been pretty nice. But it's really good to have it's really good to have that mentor. I would look at it almost as a mentor to have on your side. Yeah.
It's probably the greatest teacher that I've had in this lifetime for myself, like as checkpoints to teach me all kinds of things, and I think more importantly is to point out to me what I'm doing wrong. You know, I think with all my masks and all my justifications and everything, it's kind of easy to lie to myself. It's kind of easy to fool myself at any stage, at any point of where I am in my life, whether it's with my work, with my family, with my social life. It's very easy to justify what I'm doing just because I want to do it. But what's actually needed, what actually is needed to be done, can be so easily ignored. And I think for me, ayahuasca is just it's no bullshit. You know, you take everything off. You strip yourself bare naked, and you're in there. You just have to admit to everything that you're wrong at and everything that you have to learn. And I think for me, and for humanity on a whole, I think it's an amazing medicine to be around, because we have so many issues and so many justifications of why things have to be the way they are. And it's great to have that. It's great to be able to go into a space where you can kind of be like, yeah, you know what? I'm wrong. I need to change. Okay, it's all good if nobody else needs to know this, because the shame that's attached to that can be pretty big too. But just the idea of having that confidential meeting with divine, and being able to sort your shit out there, rather than go into a room with the, you know, psychotherapist or, you know, family members and admit your bullshit there and not being able to change it. It's so much more difficult. I think in a way, maybe ayahuasca is a shortcut.
It's almost symbolic or ironic or poetic that in society we've been avoiding the root causes of a lot of things. And now in order to heal, we have to go to the root causes, and we can do that by drinking a root, ayahuasca. it's almost like the poetry.
It is poetic, yeah.
It's so poetic, and it offers us, for those seeking, it offers many answers, but the answers are actually within. It's just it allows you to realize and access what you know and what you've truly believed it just opens that door. That's because it's so easy to suppress the truth in us, to avoid things and to block it and to justify the avoidance of those things that you need to address in your life. And then ayahuasca just removes those barriers in the most gentle way. Well, sometimes not gentle, but it's always out of love, and allows you to have that compassion.
It comes from a good place.
Yes. It may appear as a difficult moment, but it's really out of a good place, like you said, and it allows you to heal so much more effectively with like an intimate teacher that's in your mind with you, helping you process it.
Tough love.
Yeah.
I guess
it's
kind of need a
it's
shortcut.
tough love.
It's tough love. Like I have 3 kids, and sometimes it's just so hard to get through to them. Like you try all different avenues and stuff, and then you think back to the medicine and you think, what would she do if this was me? And she'd be like, okay, tough. It's time for tough love,
Yeah.
Like it's the only way that you value it at the same time,
Yes.
And for me, it's been amazing to be able to take that from the medicine experiences and actually adapt it into my daily life with people that I know, and whether it's staff or family, friends, and to be able to project that onto them, like, hey, this is a method that I've discovered and it actually works.
Yes.
So at times, by living through the example, you don't actually have to, even if you have somebody close to you who's involved in medicine work, you necessarily don't have to take it. You can just absorb it off of them, and kind of learn and live your life that way. So that's also another beautiful aspect of the medicine. I think that you can just kind of just take this energy and spread it.
Yeah, I think the everything you guys are talking about, it's making me realize that there's this fundamental difference. There's this expectation, kind of societal expectation, about wanting to get different things or to experience different things. And what you guys are touching on a lot with your the way you're talking, the things you're saying, is about being somebody else, being somebody new, really deciding the kind of man you want to be in your life, and like that's so much more powerful and so much more honest and so much more difficult and so much more effective and just so much more real. You're not chasing some. Well, I mean, not to make a heroin joke, but like you're not chasing some dragon. You're not chasing some ideal and some kind of flimsy, ephemeral experience or state that's like external. But it's really becoming like like you become your own ideal, and when you can,
it's genuine.
Yes,
that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, it's genuine. Like it's who you really want to be, without any with any influence, with any interference from anything external. It's from your being. It's from your core of you wanting to be the perfect version of yourself. And that alone is a process, because you have to discover who that person is. Because even though he's there inside of you, you have to uncover him, you have to dust him off, you have to clean him up, and you have to teach him all over again the process, because that person who lives inside of you has to adjust to your daily life, has to be able to adjust to your masks, and has to be able to help you to take them off, right? When necessary. I do think that there are times in life where you will need certain masks around certain environments and certain energies that are there to kind of pull you down. But that alone is a learning process on how to handle them. But I think over time we all experience these kind of situations in our life where we realize that, you know what, I got to be better than this. I got to be bigger than this. I got to be stronger than this. And the medicine is, whether it's LSD, MDMA, ayahuasca, San Pedro, peyote, I think they all lead you, Bufo, they all lead you down that same chain of thought, that same avenue that allows you to discover that that's what you really want.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, you don't want the fancy car and the mansion and the houses and the women and all of that. You actually just want to be the best version of yourself. And that's the great illusion, that you can be the best person, that you can be the perfect you if you have this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only when you have this, then you can concentrate on that.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest distraction in the world.
And it just feeds the machine, and it takes away the power of self, you know. And that's what most of us, this conversation, I'm sure, is going to resonate with so many people, is that we all have this desire inside to feel that connection, and we can go down these paths of materialism and buy these things, but there's no real connection because there's a desire for more each time, and more, better, bigger, fancier, whatever. But when you really stop to observe, and many are now, as to find the true happiness, the true fulfillment, it's just reconnecting with self in the most intimate way. And I feel like there is a shift in consciousness where more people are starting to look at themselves differently and trying to answer these questions, and it's just happening at a bigger scale, at least from what I'm seeing. It's exciting to see.
Yeah, I think the pandemic has kind of made people uncomfortable. Many people who are really comfortable, and like what I touched on earlier, is that the discomfort is something that we all have to put ourselves through if we want to come through the other side. And I think this pandemic, having people in really uncomfortable positions, life being totally turned upside down, has also given them a sense of perspective. Like, you know what? I got to be happy on my own. I got to be happy with every situation that I'm in.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always going to be people who can take to it and people who don't. But I think that the reason for the awakened consciousness is also part of the pandemic. It's the influence of the pandemic.
Yeah, it was like a tipping point. I put the brakes on a lot of momentum, and the momentum we operated on was kind of unconscious in a sense. So now...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so this...
I mean, we walk around in the big cities or towns or wherever you go, and you can just stop and observe if you want to grab a coffee in a coffee shop and look around. I mean, I love people watching sometimes, and I'm like, dude, this is so clueless. Like, what is going on?
I love doing it too. I always wonder what people are thinking, or do they realize there's infinity above them? And I get in my head like that. It's kind of fun.
I have to admit, I enjoy doing that too. I'm like, oh man, like sometimes I have a look at somebody who I'm like kind of close to, either somebody who I work with or something. I'm like, you have no idea what's waiting on the other side for you, do you? And I like the quote by Terence McKenna. It's like, without going through life without the psychedelic experience, it's like going through life without having sex. Like, you just don't know the experience that you're missing out on. But at the same time, I understand it's not for everybody. At the right time, yeah, maybe, but you got to be ready for it, I guess.
I mean, but it's fun to be amongst those people and to be giving that permission to the people around you who are not maybe so sure. Especially like amongst the people like Terence McKenna, you know.
Yeah.
Like
and it's just, like you said, it's just fun to connect with people that know what we're talking about and have been to those realms. It's almost like a breath of fresh air to have these kind of conversations, because they never get old. It's just like we all kind of know what we're talking about, because we all kind of been there in a sense.
And we all need reminders.
Yeah, and it's just because we're, like you said, we're just constantly building and trying to progress to that illusion of perfection that we're all trying to attain. But that's the beauty of the journey. So when we see others on that path, it's just
encouraging.
It's encouraging.
It's amazing. Yeah. I was last night, I was going to bed, and I was like, I've heard like dozens and thousands and hundreds of podcasts over the years. This is the first podcast I'm actually on. Nice. So I'm like, why am I doing this? What's the reason that I'm waking up early and going to the office and talking to these guys who I've never met? And like, I'm like, I get to talk about the one thing that I love, you know, like I hold so dear to me, and I barely talk about it with anyone. because I am involved with my work, I'm involved with my family, my parents and stuff. I can't really normally have these. So when I do have a small group of friends that we do go for ceremony together and we do talk about, and I'm like, oh, I actually get to have one of those conversations with guys who I don't know. So this is going to be mad fun. That's, it was encouraging for me to, and it's funny enough that I got invited to do another podcast right after this. So I was like, this is interesting. I'm getting to meet new people who have shared different ideas and have similar ideas as mine. And it's amazing. I think it's fantastic what you guys do.
Yeah, thank you. And it's literally across the world. Like our time zone is almost 12 hours different, so it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I've been sat here while my staff have come into work, and they're all getting ready to start their day, and I'm like, what is he doing here in the office?
Man. We really appreciate the effort.
We have 2 hours.
Yeah, no, we're way over time. We'll let you get. I'm sure you got to get to work or something. But part of the reason was because of Drew. One of our Banky just connected us, and I assume you met him maybe that's another story for another time as well. There, but I'm sure the medicine brought you guys together.
I started this online e-commerce brand, psychedelic clothing. And his wife actually purchased some clothes. Nice. So she chatted with me, and then she sent me a link of what they do. And I was like, you guys sound awesome. And they're like, okay, we want to, get these clothes and stuff. I was like, hey, let's set up a video call. I'd like to know more about you guys. So we did a video call, and then that lasted about 2 hours as well, just chit-chatting, shooting the shit about our lives. Drew was telling me about his life, I was telling him about mine and what we do. And it's amazing because before I started Psychedelic Dreams, the clothing brand, I had very little connection to the psychedelic community because my work was, my other business was textile related, so nobody in that trade even knows what psychedelics are. I mean, for them, heroin and LSD is probably the same, And I was like, hey, this is actually an avenue where I'm connecting with the tribe, with my tribe all over the world, because it is all one tribe, Yes,
so spread out, but so connected.
It's very connected, and the medicine makes that all possible. And I guess Christianity can say the same thing.
Yeah, and power to them too. We all find our way to source in different ways, and if it's true to you, it's if it's honest.
If it's honest and if it's genuine and it connects, and the purpose of it, the intention behind it is pure, then power to it, then the universe puts all its energy and all its force behind to allow that to grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. All right, guys. I think.
Yeah, I mean, no better place to stop there, I guess. But I'm sure
it's been beautiful, guys.
That was very nice.
Yeah, likewise, dude. I mean, I can't wait to talk to you again. I feel like we could just dive into more shit. And
me too.
Yeah,
that was beautiful.
Yeah, we scratched the surface though.
Yeah, hard. We left a mark for sure. But thank you so much again, man, for taking the time. I really. We never know what to expect, but you're
me too, man.
Yeah. I'm glad that we popped your podcast cherry, man, and now there's some synchronicity going on, and you already got another one lined up. Yeah, no, blessings, man. Very, very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just I don't know what else to say, man. It was really fun talking to you. I look forward to it again, and I'm really curious about your clothing brand as well. I'm sure I'm gonna love something and pick it up.
I'll send you the link on the message. Send me your addresses. I'm looking forward to sending you some stuff.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. And for our listeners, how can they find this clothing?
It's www.psychedelicdreams.com. It's SYKADELICDREAMS.com.
Okay, so it's a K instead. Well, we'll put a link as well.
We'll put a link as well.
Easier.
Psychedelicdreams.com. Check it out. Got some amazing artists, visionary artists that just do amazing things. And I helped them design the clothes. And yeah, it's just a mad fun project that we got going for like-minded people at really affordable prices, because you know what, it's COVID, we're all kind of broke. And so we figured, you know what, let's make less money, but let's just put it out there, spread the beauty, spread the art, you know, walk down the street and see some people wearing cool DMT visuals on their t-shirts. You're like, yeah, man, you got it.
I gotta give you props, man. I know we're wrapping up, but like for you to sacrifice the money in hand to make sure that people have the product in hand, like that's awesome. That's really something. So that's really cool.
Yeah. But you know what? When you're looking for a change in the world, when you're looking for something different, and you keep searching and you keep searching, you're like, hey, dude, why don't I just be it? You know, like start small, whatever's little difference you can make. And it's been a fun journey, because we've been operating for like 8 to 10 months now. We've already racked up like a couple of thousand followers, and like, you know, there's people buying stuff online every day, and I'm just so appreciative of everyone supporting the brand. I'm like, yeah, you know,
we're everywhere.
And I think that's really cool thing about our community, about the medicine community, is people really do get behind each other when they can feel the intention behind it. It's like, it's very pure. It's very honest and humble. So I really appreciate that. And thanks for asking about it.
Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for your journey and sharing that journey with us. And it's really enlightening, and it's a great reference point for me to think back on, and to kind of use almost as a teaching. Just your whole life experience can be such a value to mine. If I find myself in these kind of darker moments, I have this reference point now, and I think a lot of our listeners will have this kind of same type of feel as well. So thank you for that, and thank you for being you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys also, man. Much gratitude for everything you guys do.
Awesome.
All right.
Until next time.
Have a good day.
Chat soon, boys.
Yeah, have a good day. We're going to sleep soon.
I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in Thailand. I had to throw that in.
I'm happy to know you're there, because I want to go back at some point. So we'll keep that contact.
You have a home, and you have a guide.
Awesome, brother.
Thank you, man.
Yes.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Peace and love, man.